This is what many consider to be the most remotest road on the Scottish mainland. It is a 22-mile single track dead end. When you do get to the end, you get to the ocean, and then beyond the ocean, the next piece of land is the Isle of Skye. But there are so many things to see along this track here. It is a stunning, beautiful, rural, remote, brutal road. It really is. And I mean brutal is that it crumbles. It just almost falls away. And it's a bit of a battle to get down all the way down to the bottom. But I've stopped here because this is going to be my first photograph. Well, I've made it across the bay in what was quite a treacherous walk actually. I can't say I'm looking forward to going back that way. But I've set up my camera here, as you can see, and I've got an absolutely beautiful scene in front of me. I've got this spit of land which I want to include in the left-hand side. The temptation is, when you see all this beauty, the temptation is to photograph everything. And yeah, I know, I've been there and it is very, very tempting, but it's also, in the long run, it's better if you actually, for me at least, it's better if I just slow everything down, calm down, and just start to pick the things that I want and the things that I don't want, just by using the lens, cropping and composing it, just so that you're getting the maximum impact from the location. But it is so tempting to have everything. So what I'm going to do is, I've got the GFX 50 out here with a 32 to 64mm lens on. And I'm going to go in fairly close in on this spit of land that you can just see over my shoulder here. I want that spit of land to hold the photograph together on the left-hand side of the image. But the star of the show, the star of the show is the skyline. It's the water, the sea loch and the skyline in the distance, coupled with the light. The light is so important here because it's very windy. Well, it's not very windy, but it's quite windy, which is great because it's creating so many transitional moments in the sky and in the light, and it's just a question of waiting for the moment to press the shutter. This spit of land here, I really want lit. I don't want it drenched in light. I just want it spotlit, preferably spotlit. And I want there to be all this patchwork light in the distant hills there, the distant mountains, just like it is at the moment. But I want a little bit more of it. But so it's just a question of just waiting and getting the timing right now for me. The filters I've got on, I've got the polarizer on, even though the sun's directly behind you, I've got the polarizer on, which is just taking the glare off the water surface and just darkening it down a little bit because yeah, it's got too much glare on it for my liking. And I love the sky, so I'm going to take a photograph at around about a 50th of a second for the sky because I love the energy and the drama in that sky, so I'm going to keep that in the photograph. But I'm going to take another photograph with a 10-stop ND filter on, just to calm the water down, just to take the energy out of the water. So we've got a nice balance between the water being quite calm and then you've got the energy of the sky. So for me, it just adds a little bit more interest to the composition. So yeah, and with a 10-stop filter, I'm getting, I should imagine 20 to 30 seconds f11. Because it's quite windy, I can't go too long on the exposure because I'm going to get camera shake. So I'm going to keep the exposure down to 30-40 seconds max. So I'm going to probably up the ISO and stop down a couple of stops. I normally shoot at f16. I'll probably shoot at f11 on this one. But yeah, so it's just a question of waiting for the light and all the conditions. It's just fantastic. I just love this. This is the Scottish midwinter. It really is midwinter. And look, it's about 7 degrees. It's quite cool. But the nice thing is about it being windy is that it's keeping the midges away. I had a rainbow here just a few moments ago, so that would be nice if I could get lucky again with that one. But if it turns out, I'll pop it up on the screen. Fingers crossed, it's half decent. So I've just moved about 20 yards to the right from where I took the last shot, and this tree is just screaming out to be photographed. It's got so much character, and if I can just compose it in such a way that it kind of blends in and balances the rest of the composition, I think I might have a half decent photograph here. It's got so much character to it. It's fantastic. So I've got to photograph it. The difficulty is composing it because I'm limited with space. Where you are here now, that's as far back as I can go. Otherwise I just plunge into the water, and I'm sure you don't want that to happen. No. So yes, that's as far back as so I can't go any further back really than where you can see my camera's position there. And I'm going lower down, so I'm having to just, unfortunately, point the camera up at a slight angle so as to get the balanced composition that I want. And just like the last shot, it's just a question of waiting for this light to change. And it's because it's windy, it's changing all the time. So I've just got to be patient and lucky. It possibly could be quite a big dynamic range between the dark tree and the bright sky in the distance. There could be 4, 5, 6 stops difference between the two exposures. So if this tree doesn't light up, but I think it will do. Looking behind you, the sky is breaking up, so I think this tree will light up and it will balance out the dynamic range, so I can capture it all in one photograph. But if it doesn't, you can see it's now lit. See the ferns are all lit, and it's really making it pop and adding a lot of depth and interest to the foreground. But it's only a bit part player, the tree. The main focus of my attention is the skyline in the distance. That's what I really want. So I've got to keep an eye on the light in the distance, because if that can be spotlit or sun rays, rainbows, anything, just to add that little bit more interest, much deeper back into the image. It's going to add a lot of depth to the photograph, different layers. But yeah, so ideally I want all this lit, which it is now. And then I want the distant hills to be lit beautifully as well. But I'm going to grab a shot like it is now, because the dynamic range is pretty much balanced now, so I can capture what I want in one photograph. Let's see how it turns out. So I've driven a little bit further down this single track road. I'm only about a mile away from, a mile and a half away from the sea now, which if you continue down this road, you go past this hill and it starts to descend into a series of like hairpins, and the road becomes really crumbly and it just falls away. It's a bit, I'm not looking forward to it, to be honest with you. But I've stopped here because we've got this this old derelict croft house. Actually, it's quite interesting because I stopped here and photographed this about 4 years ago, and it had a roof, and it had the gables and a roof, and it was almost in a pretty much good health. It's amazing how quickly it deteriorates. Only 3-4 years it's deteriorated, and I guess in the next few years it may just be a whole heap of rubble. Probably will be. So it's important. It's an important lesson for me, really, that you know, I drive past these sorts of places, and you think, oh, one day when I've got more time, I'll come back with the lights better, or if it's snowing, I'll photograph it. But one day they're not going to be there. So always, if you get the opportunity to do it, just take the photograph. You know, if you need to come back, but at least you've got something. Now this road, which I mentioned, obviously you've got the Packhorse Bridge on the right-hand side. So you've got the bridge on the right-hand side, and you've got the croft on the left-hand side, which is adding balance to the image. But what's further strengthening the balance is I'm going to include a part of the road coming in from the right-hand side of the photograph, and the stream, which you can't see, but there's a stream here going underneath the bridge. I've got the stream coming in from the left, so you've got some real strong balance to the image here, to the composition. But it's the hills in the background, it's the hills in the distance that are the stars of the show for me. Now I want some more light on those hills, preferably, because the eye tends to be attracted to the brightest part of an image. So I definitely need the house, the croft lit, and I definitely need the bridge lit. But I also want some differential light in the background to add interest and depth further back into the image. So on here, I've put the 20 to 35mm wide angle zoom on this camera, and I'm getting, there's a cluster of trees here which you can't see, but they're in the way, they're in the photograph. I'm going to do it on a 16:9 aspect ratio because I've tried the 65:24 mailbox, but it just it cuts out it cuts out too much of the sky. It doesn't allow the ridgeline to breathe at the top of the image, and it also cuts out a bit of the foreground again, so it just looks wrong. So I'm going to go for the 16:9 aspect ratio. So now I'm just really going to wait for the lighting conditions. I kind of like this lighting condition, although I probably would prefer a little bit of light on that dominant hill in the distance there. So just like with a lot of my photographs, it's just a question of waiting. But I can think of worse places to be and wait. It's quite windy because it is quite windy, the sky is constantly changing, and because the sky is moving so quickly, the sunlight is coming through and then it's dipping out, and it's sort of spotlighting various areas of this shot. So now, I mean, for me at the moment, the light in the foreground here is too bright, it's too uniform, it's too saturated. That is better, that there's light now moving across, the clouds are moving across the sky, the sun, and it's creating, I have focused it, don't worry. That's better. It's much more variable light, which is what I'm looking for. I don't want it like this, which is all completely floodlit. But I can just see some clouds moving across this hill, and it may just, I really want that hill spotlit a bit as well. Just waiting for this light to just move across. Timing is so important. Now that is given a different type of light. It's variable light, which is a bit more interesting than having it all floodlit. Ah, look at that on the background. That's what I'm looking for. Can you see? That's what I'm looking for. That spotlight on the back. Now that is going to draw the eye. Just have a look. See, that draws the eye. Perfect timing. Just goes to show. I'll take a couple of those. You see how it's adding a lot more interest and a lot more depth to the photograph. All I need now is, never happy, am I? I just need the house and the croft and the bridge to be lit. But yeah, so you can see what I mean about the variable light in the background, in the hills. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling on. I'll wait a little bit longer, take a few more photographs, and I'll pop what I think is the most half decent one up. Just see if I can see the roof. Well, I've packed up now. I've finished taking the photographs. I hope they turned out okay. I'm going to head back down here just for a couple of miles just to see what's down there before heading back up the 22 miles along here. It takes about an hour to drive these 22 miles, so you're only averaging 20 miles an hour. So it's hard going, but there's so many. As a photographer, there's so many places that you can stop off and take photographs. It's well worth the opportunity to come. If you get the opportunity, it's well worth taking. Well, but I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed being here. And if you have, please consider subscribing to this new channel. All your likes, your comments, your messages, I attach great value to them. They are truly very much appreciated. But for now, thanks ever so much for watching. And I hope to see you again very soon, somewhere in the Scottish Highlands. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.